The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com, IgnitionAPG.com, PlayUSA at PLAEUSA.com, and Sorinex Exercise Equipment at Sorinex.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery's straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 134. Super excited to have Dr. Wayne Westcott with us today. Dr. Westcott is a professor at Quincy College in the Exercise Science Department, but prior to that, he was the director of fitness research for the South Shore YMCA up in Quincy, Massachusetts. And my experience with Dr. Westcott goes way back to when I was first getting into strength and conditioning, and I was an intern for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And his research was really some of the first research that I had ever read to really better myself as a professional, and those types of things. Of course, you read some things in college, but this was it, in terms of really seeking out knowledge and looking to the research to do that. And so it's really a treat for me to be able to bring him on the show, share him with you guys. Fantastic person, written over 20 plus strength and conditioning fitness books, and just a huge asset to our community. So super excited to get to this episode. Before we do, we want to make sure we recognize our sponsor for this episode, Play USA. And you guys, you know how much Play means to me. They've been a part of the show for a long time, and just super excited for them to be coming back again in 2016. But if you're not following them on any of the social media, Facebook or Twitter or whatever, make sure to do so. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I love just simply looking at what other people are doing with their weight rooms, and so constantly being able to see some ideas. I mean, Pace University just put in their flooring and did some really cool things with their logos there for their racks. They're starting to get into producing some content with Matt Hickman there, and he's got they got a kettlebell complex there with Georgia Tech's John Sisk, and these are really cool. These platforms that they did for UAB for their basketball program. So again, I mean, I love seeing what other people are doing. So for nothing else, follow them for that. But if you're in the market for flooring, there really is nothing better. I mean, they really do a fantastic job, and not just from a product and installation, that type of stuff, but in terms of really being a huge asset and resource for strength coaches. So make sure to check them out. Lastly, before we get to the episode, I'm starting a new podcast in January that is going to be in addition to Iron Game Chalk Talk. It's a different podcast, but I get probably now I'd say at least 10 to 15 emails a day with questions from different strength coaches about different things, and I try my best. I mean, I promised myself way back when that I would make sure that I try to respond to strength coaches when they ask questions. And so I didn't get that really when I was getting into the field. There were some key people that did, but for the most part, a lot of my questions went unanswered, and so I really wanted to do that. This podcast, it's going to be called Ask Coach Mac, and it's simply going to be a way for me to be able to answer these questions to the masses, make it a little bit easier so I can reference some answers for people in the future. But I hope to be able to grow it. It's going to start off as a weekly podcast, and from there we'll grow it and maybe into possibly a daily podcast where I'm answering a question. It's going to be a 5-10 minute episode each day, so you can listen to it on the way in or out from work, and just find hopefully a couple nuggets in there, just some things that using my experiences and others to tackle some of these questions in strength and conditioning. So if you're interested in submitting a question, the way to do so is to go to my website, ronmckeefery.com, and on the side there's a widget that says send voicemail. You will click that and then just record yourself from your computer asking the question. Make sure to introduce yourself and ask a question. And it's going to be a little bit. We're going to probably release it late January with some episodes already done, and so that's why I wanted to get some questions already filtering in, and we've already done that. But there'll be a lot more. We'll have a web page set up and all that with more instructions. But if you're listening to this now and you have some questions that you'd like me to answer, please submit those. No guarantees that I'm going to be able to use those questions all the time. I'm going to do my best to answer questions that I think everybody can learn from, and it's a good, just topic for discussion. But send those, and we'll make sure to do that. So hope that you enjoy this episode with Dr. Westcott. We'll talk to you on the other side. All right, guys. Hey, I got a treat for us today. Dr. Wayne Westcott is literally one of the first guys that I listened to or read research from. And just coming out, I graduated back in the 90s, and it just wasn't, the internet wasn't what it was, and it was harder to get periodicals and things along those lines. But, when I first got to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I got several research studies from Dr. Wayne Westcott, and it's just one of those, it's just been very influential in my career. So, man, I'm excited to have you on the show. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us today.
Thank you. I'm honored, and congratulations on your recent great honor from the NSCA.
Oh, I appreciate that. Wayne, you have a great journey. It starts with, it starts before the YMCA, but a storied career with the YMCA, and then now at Quincy College. But kind of go into what got you into strength and conditioning and fitness research and the YMCA, and then what's led you there to Quincy.
Well, thank you, man. Actually, when I was a student at Penn State, I started doing strength training. Not many people did back then, and the coaches weren't too excited about it, especially I was a track and cross country runner, so not being a football player, that was unusual. But I started reading the magazines. That's all we had back then, some magazines like Bob Hoffman and Peter magazines. And I'm not sure everything I learned was correct, but at least I knew the names of the muscles and how to do some exercises. So later on, when I went back to Penn State for a master's degree, I had a teaching assistantship. They started some strength training classes for the required physical education program, and they didn't have anybody that wanted to or knew how to teach it. So I said, I can do that. And so foolishly, I started doing that, and I just loved it. And I did my master's research in strength training, and that just continued on. And then eventually, I was teaching I taught at Penn State for a while, coached track there, assistant coach, not head coach, and then head coach at Eastern Connecticut State College for track and cross country. And for some reason, one of the publishing companies, Alan Bacon, contacted me and said, hey, there's not too much out there on strength training. Would you be willing to write a book? And I said, of course, not knowing what I was saying. And I said, I better do some more research on this. So it kind of started me in the research of working with resistance exercise and with athletes, and also, of course, non-athletes in my YMCA career. So I've been doing it for a long time. I've made a lot of mistakes, and they say you learn best from mistakes, so hopefully I've gained a little knowledge in the process.
Oh, there's no question. And you've written, 20-plus books now, right?
We have 28th book is coming out later this month, they tell me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And first of all, let me thank you just for, it's guys like yourself that have contributed to the knowledge base of myself and all the strength coaches that are listening. And so it's such an honor to talk to you and to be able to, to hopefully motivate everybody. As you know, I just put out my first book earlier this year, and it was such a goal of mine because, there's just so much, there's just not a lot of information out there still, even to this day, even with being on your 28th book. And so, the opportunity to, and I appreciate the effort because I know how much work goes into that process. So thanks for that. Wayne, when I was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, let me go back. When I was training early on in my career, I trained with Esteban Javorek, who's an great Olympic lifting coach. And that's been pretty much my my upbringing. That's multiple joints, periodization, Olympic lifts, and then I got my first opportunity after the Royals to go for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which was more of a not I wouldn't say a traditional high intensity program, but very rooted in high intensity principles. And what I learned in that process, and it was critical in my development, was that I needed to become a principle-based strength coach, not a philosophy-based strength coach. And not base mine on philosophy or powerlifting or Olympic lifting or CrossFit or whatever. I needed to be able to talk about overload and progression and all these types of principles. But in that story, there was one time where a strength coach from Virginia came down. And I drank the Kool-Aid quick. I saw the results. We were a pretty good team, and so I dived right into all your research and the books that were out there and things along those lines. And so I wanted to be the high intensity advocate. And so a coach came down from Virginia. We had basically, long story short, we had a debate about kind of Olympic lifting.
Don't go away. Just gotta hit this because it's gonna go off. There you go. I'm back.
There you go. And we had a debate about, kind of Olympic lifting versus high intensity and all that. And so Mark Asanovich pulled me into the office and pulled this guy in the office. And basically I was just getting abused. This guy had been in the business for 10 years, 15 years. And he was killing me. And Mark, turns around and he basically, long story short, crushes him with this debate. Turns around, and so I'm in the background, I'm fist pumping, I'm like, yeah, we got him, and so he sits me back down, and he's like, all right, you use the exact same argument that I did, and he's going to argue the other way. And he was arguing for Olympic lifting and periodization and all these things, and he crushed me. And so what I learned was that there's lots of different ways to do things, and I know you've put out lots of books, and I know that you would kind of self-classify yourself as a hybrid as well, but talk a little bit about the research that you've done, in terms of kind of optimal sets, reps, and get into some of the principles around how you would suggest guys in my position train.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your book out. And
I appreciate that.
I am about as creative as a log. You people that are working with athletes have to be incredibly creative. And so basically what I have done all my career is listen to what people are saying and then simply do research studies to see if, hey, does that really apply across the board, or is that a little more limited to certain genetic characteristics, fiber types, different things of that nature. And so a lot of what we have done is try to look at what is the basis for building strength and building muscle. Not so much power. Athletes need power. I understand that. That's way over my head. If I can get strength and size, I feel I'm doing a little bit better than I would otherwise do. So what it really comes down to, and Bill Kramer told me this once, and I said, that makes a lot of sense. It comes down to the motor unit. The motor unit, the nerve and the muscle fibers that innervate, that seems to be real key. And so we have different types of motor units. There are several, but basically we can categorize them into type 1, what we typically call slow twitch, and type 2, which are fast twitch. And as you know, your athletes playing football, they're mostly fast twitch. They're 75, 80% fast twitch. And people running distance events are mostly slow twitch, 75, 80% slow twitch. Well, when we strength train, and this is a real key round to me, and people don't understand this when I talk to them for some reason, when we're doing fairly heavy weights, like say 80% of max or for 8 reps, we're engaging the slow twitch fibers first. They're always engaged in everything we do. And then when they can't handle it, when they run out of their ability, they can only handle a certain part of it, we add the fast twitch. So we got slow twitch and fast twitch working together. As we go through those reps, the fast twitch, they're fast to fatigue as well as more powerful and larger and stronger and have about 5 times as many fibers per motor group. They fatigue first. And so once they fatigue, we typically stop the set. I mean, once they're fatigued, we can't do 80% of our max. So we stop and we rest and we come back and do another set. And that's great. I love training like that, especially my bench presses, my multiple joint movements. I always do that. And I progress up and I progress down, do all kinds of things, and do multiple sets, and I love it. And if I have the time and energy and interest, which I do, it works great because by the time I get to the third or fourth or fifth set, I've not only fatigued those fast twitch motor units over and over, I fatigue some of the slow twitch units too. So I'm getting the best of both worlds. The high intensity people said you can do that more efficiently. I'm not sure you can do it better, but you can certainly do it more efficiently if you don't have much time. With the high intensity studies that we did, we're simply looking at various means of extending that first exercise set so that when you fail with 80% of maximum, you don't just stop and rest and give the fast twitch units a chance to recover and be used again for the second set. But you drop the weight somewhere, you reduce the resistance somewhere, and there are a variety of ways, as you know, to do that. And you continue to extend that set to fatigue more of those slow twitch fibers in a shorter time frame. So it's a very efficient way to train. Some people really like it, some people don't. Some exercises, I use it, some I don't. My abs, I'm not going to show my abs because you'd be very disappointed. I do my best, but when I do sets of abs, I never get sore the next day. When I do a breakdown set of abs, even just one, I can't laugh or cough for the next couple of days. That works. Other things, like I said, benches or leg presses or pull downs, or I like to do my multiple sets. So I like to have a lot of tools in the toolbox, but I want to understand what this tool is doing, what that tool is doing, how it affects. The main thing I want to do is by the time I finish my chest workout or my back workout or whatever it is, I want to fatigue as many of those available motor units, muscle fibers as I can so that I get a good stimulus to become a little stronger and maybe at my age maintain my muscle a little longer. I'm not building anymore. I'm trying just not to lose it. Right?
Sure. No,
Don't get old.
I understand. So when you train to kind of momentary muscular fatigue and you're doing it in that fashion, I mean, an argument would be, training that hard, all the time, the effect on the nervous system as an athlete. How would you defend maybe against that?
I agree.
Yeah.
And Bill Kramer's done a lot of research in this area. I certainly agree. I recommend this periodically or occasionally or when you hit a strength plateau. We use it for strength plateaus most of the time. At my age, I do a full body workout twice a week, partly because of my age, partly because of the time frame. And so most exercise I can, things like the multiple joint exercise, which I really love, I'll do warm-up sets and progress on or do multiple sets. But for some of the exercises, like I just said, with my abs, my neck, some other things, where I'm doing rotary movements, single joint actions, the breakdowns or someone assisting me to get a couple extra reps, that works really well. But I don't do that more than usually just once a week. I do that. At the most, I do it twice a week. It's certainly not something I would do repeatedly. And I say that because, Ron, if I can just digress 1 second, Lester's research, our research, a lot of studies have shown that people like you, even people like me that have trained all our lives, we're advanced. I'm advanced very, very at a minor level compared to you, but I've done this a long time. No one, other than maybe a great marathon runner, is going to recover fully in 48 hours. You take a good workout, it takes at least 72 to 96 hours to gain back not only where you were, but exceed that to make progress in terms of strength gain or muscle gain. So recovery time to me, especially as I get older, because it increases as you get older, is probably the most important factor I can think of for people like you and me, athletes who love to train. We don't do too little training typically. We do too much. And so your point is very well taken about pushing too hard with the high intensity.
Yeah. I think that the other side of the coin is you mentioned the order of recruitment. And, what about coaches that are especially when you're talking to a position coach or a sport coach or something along those lines, and they'll come down and they'll be, you're doing the power clean. I want to do the power clean because it looks like you're tackling somebody, or and you're selectively. It's like this misconception that you're selectively recruiting those fast twitch muscle fibers. I don't know where you lie on the continuum in terms of the Olympic lifts and things along those lines, but it's definitely a part of our program. But the argument is, with an order of recruitment, you're not going to selectively recruit fast twitch muscle fibers. What would you say are some of the arguments for maybe the Olympic lifts, and what would be some of the arguments against? And again, I think everything works. It's just that it's the level in which the potential for injury and what's the cost benefit, in terms of the exercise. But what would be how would you argue, from science, the benefits of the Olympic lifts and maybe the arguments from science against Olympic lifting?
Okay. I have no problem with Olympic lifting, especially power cleans. I'm not real good at that. I'm not a great athlete. I can build strength. I can build size within my, puny 160 pound genetic potential. But power has always eluded me, right? When I was coaching track at Penn State, believe it or not, they gave me the throwers. I was a distance runner. What do I know about throwing? But they said, well, you understand biomechanics, you understand training, so let's go to it. Well, the throwers, and I coached the women team, we never lost a meet in 2 years. The throwers, the team actually never lost. It was undefeated for 2 years back in the 70s before you were born, Ron. We never lost a meet in the 2 years that I was privileged to coach there. And my theory was, I can get you stronger. I can add some bulk. Maybe we can increase the power with the Olympic lifts. I wasn't sure about that. I never been great at understanding how to increase speed of athletes. What we would do is this. We would train heavy, way ahead of the time. Most people weren't even training back then. We would train heavy. We would train sets. We would do the major lifts. We would do power clean, all with benches and inclines and squats and things of that nature. But when it came to increasing the speed of what we were doing, like putting the shot, for example, we just practiced putting the shot. We didn't say that, hey, what I do in the incline, I built a 45-degree incline, which you have to use. If you're going to put any implement your farthest, it's got to go 45 degrees. Whether it's a disc, shot, javelin, doesn't matter. So we built that. But in terms of the specificity of training, we left that for on the field. Give me another example. At another school, Eastern Connecticut State University, I was the head track coach. So give me an example of high jump. How do you get high jumpers to jump higher? I don't know. We train them hard in the weight to get strong. But when they're out there and they're doing their drills on the high jump and they can do all kinds of drills, that's fine. But when that bar is up, when we set the bar up, they're on their mark. They're coming in full speed. They're not going half speed. They're not doing half jump. Every time that mark's on, I'm going to develop that neuromuscular system to give the highest effort they can. So when it comes to the meet, that's what they do. Same with the shot. Now, Ron, we didn't win because I did this in the meets. But in the shot, for example, people say, you've got to use a heavier shot in practice so that when you go to the meet, it's going to feel lighter. That makes sense to me, but it didn't work for me. So what happened with me, Ron, is we made a lighter shot. We didn't use it in the meets. We had a lighter shot. It wasn't as heavy as the one we used in the meets. And so when we would go to the meets, the weight was heavier, but we've been using a lighter shot, so in our practice, the speed increased. Now, I don't know if that helps or not. There are a lot of ways to increase speed. I'm not very good at it, but building basic strength, I think you can't go wrong with your basic lifts, your basic multi-joint lifts, like, again, benches, incline squats, etc. I think that your power cleans have a very important place in athletes because they need to develop power and speed and coordination. Sequencing of movements is probably the most important thing.
Right.
But in terms of building speed, you're the expert. I give up.
Well, I totally agree with you. That's exactly what my argument is. I mean, I don't think that you selectively recruit, but I think that that sequencing that you mentioned is the number one factor. And I couldn't agree with you more. I want to switch gears a little bit because I think that you after like this storied career and you skirted over that, but it's a storied career with the YMCA. But you started a program, an exercise science program at Quincy College Quincy College, and I think I think where we're at with strength and conditioning. It's my personal opinion is that we need to create an academic program for strength and conditioning so that it becomes a more legitimatized profession. Right now we still have coaches that are not retiring being strength coaches. But I think the steps. My personal opinion is our steps are that we need to create some administrative positions. A high performance manager, or associate ADs that are in charge of human performance or exercise science or things along those lines. But I also think that we need to create these academic programs so that guys, in their 50s, in their 60s, when they maybe get fired from a job because it's a young man's game, they have an opportunity to be able to go and teach, and learn and make sure that you're not just piecing together all these disciplines, exercise science, biomechanics, kinesiology, and hoping that you become a better coach. And so how did, you went and you approached Quincy College, you created an exercise program. How would a strength coach go about trying to create a strength and conditioning degree program or concentration or emphasis or whatever, and get that going at a university?
I'm not sure about a major university. This is a 2-year school. But I went to the president. I just came over one day and I said, hey, president, you need to have an exercise science program. Personal training is big. It's very large. And in most of personal training, most people that I know do personal training, they spend most of their time doing strength. A lot of people here, we have the largest YMCA in the country right down the street, the one that I used to work at for 25, 30 years, has now just rebuilt. It's the largest urban Y in the country. It's huge. It's immense. And they have personal training all over the place. It's wonderful. But not most, but a large number of the people are saying, hey, not that things that are important. Remember, I was a distance runner. I love endurance activities, cardiovascular. But they say, we can teach how to do your cardio on you. We don't have to stand there and say, hey, your heart rate's this, that. You can see that on the monitor. But they spend most of their time strength training. And now most of my peers that are in the personal training are doing 30 minutes. They're doing 30-minute sessions. And it's all strength. So they can have 2 people in an hour, get twice as many people.
Sure.
And the people say, I get this. I can do the endurance on my own. I'll check in with you once a month on the endurance. So the strength training really is the key right now in the field of personal training or obviously much of athletics, etc. So most of our program is focused on strength training. And because I think practicality is so important, in addition to what we do in the classroom, I have a class that goes out in the schools and works. It's called Youth Strength Training. And we go out and we work with children, with a variety of equipment, what other schools have. We just help the teachers. We go to nursing homes and senior living centers and work with the older adults who desperately need this. We train our faculty, administration, and staff right here at our facility. So we're working with middle-aged adults. And you know something, Ron? The principles that you said are similar, but the adaptations are different. And so there's so much to learn, like you said, whether you're working with athletes or whether you're working with older adults or youth or just people that want to get fit, or what we're looking at now, most of our recent research around has been with obese and overweight, because really when you factor out the BMI, which doesn't tell you very much, when you look at actual percent body fat, about 85% of Americans have too much fat and too little muscle, and we're pretty much the only ones that can help them, because the reason they have too much fat is because they have too little muscle, and their metabolism slows down. Even though that 56% of Americans on a diet, they're still gaining weight because they've lost the muscle. They've gone from an 8-cylinder engine to a 4-cylinder engine. And you got me started. I'll stop. But we need to do exactly what you said, because there's so much out there. And it all comes back to the muscles are the engines of the body. We've got to get people using them.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's, again, I think it's a necessary. I mean, we, as strength coaches, and everybody that's listening to this is pretty much in that field, we're quick to complain about that there's not enough jobs, or we don't make enough money, or this, that, or the other. But the way to do that is to show the need on multiple levels about how we can turn around and help, the general population, youth athletes, there's so many ways that we can use our knowledge and create opportunities. And I think that's the critical piece when it comes to the advancement of our field. And I mean, eventually we'll have a strength coach in every high school. Maybe there might be a strength coach.
Before I just hit this thing, I keep saying it's going to get rid of me. I got to.
That's all right.
Pull this.
And so we got to be the ones that are the innovators and like I said, in my book, I talk about being an entrepreneur. I mean, that's the entrepreneurial part of what we need to do. Is we need to continue to find opportunities. And I think academics is a huge opportunity that we're missing out on right now, and finding opportunities to get into that discipline, I think, is most important. But Wayne, I know you're busy, and I know you got a lot of things going on. We kind of end the show with some different resources. Tell us the best piece of coaching advice. What's the advice that you give your students when they're going out there for the first time? That when they're working with somebody. That's just something that's stuck with you your entire career.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. Thanks for your great comments. I could not agree with you more. They're very insightful. I really think, and I don't know how to say this properly, that or well, but you need to assess each individual and treat them as an individual, looking to their strengths and weaknesses and trying to develop them to their potential to fit their abilities, not your program desires. When I try to fit people into my scheme because I think this is the best scheme, it rarely works. When I try to use the resources that I have and that you have and your peers have to say, okay, this isn't the best system for you. Let's see what we can do. And so I try to individualize. It takes a lot more time. There's no one more underpaid than strength coaches. And I don't include myself in that. I'm talking about what you do for people is invaluable. But what we can do on a smaller scale is try and assess people. I do assessments of muscle fiber. We don't do needle biopsies. We have a way we can do that. And I try and set a program that works better. It takes a lot of time, but it's well worth it. So working individually and helping each individual achieve their potential is something that I think is important. I take great satisfaction because I'm not a person who has great potential, but I'm important to me. Right?
Absolutely.
And I want to achieve. If I do my best, I feel I've done a good job.
Right.
So I think other people, not everyone is going to be a blue chip athlete, but everyone can be very successful if the approach is proper. So I think coaches need to individualize, look at individuals as everyone being important.
What about a book that you recommend? Maybe a book within. We'll make sure we link up all your books, which are great. People got to read, but a book inside strength and conditioning and a book outside of strength and conditioning.
Well, inside strength and conditioning, I've just been privileged to co-author with some great people. I'm sure you know Dr. Avery Fangbaum, who's the expert in youth strength training. We've written several books together. Our latest one is Youth Strength Training. He is just phenomenal. He was my doctoral student back in 1990. I was his doctoral advisor. He's just gone. He's so far surpassed me, and I'm just so proud of him. And then a fellow that's actually older than me. I didn't know that was possible because I'm getting pretty old. And that's Dr. Tom Beckley, who actually was one of the founders of the NSCA and was the head of their certification commission for 25 years. A great man out in Creighton University. Avery's down at University of New Jersey. And Tom and I have written 4 or 5 books together. And the latest one we've done is the second edition or third edition of Strength Training Past 50 for us old-timers. And I just want to put in a plug for these guys because they've helped me so much. Tom is an expert at just about everything. He's an old Olympic lifter, a very good one. He had some great honors in his day. And Avery, he's a great power lifter, bodybuilder. They're just great. So if you don't mind me mentioning books I'm affiliated with, I think those are just fabulous.
No, that's great. Any outside of strength and conditioning that you recommend?
Well, yes, a lot of things outside of strength and conditioning that I think are excellent. And I like Jack Wilmore's books, just in general exercise physiology. I think he is just Costello, Wilmore. I think they're just phenomenal. They go back a long time, but sometimes being old has its advantage. You've got a lot of experience, and some of their textbooks, there are many, many out there, but they are just a couple of my favorites.
That's great. Now I'm going to give you the real challenge here. What about an app or a website that you recommend?
I'm not good, Ron. App, I'm totally clue. Ron, I'm an old. I don't even have a cell phone yet, let alone an app or a website. But I'd say yours is just about the best I've seen. So I'm gonna go with that one.
There you go. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's great. That's great. Well, like I said at the beginning, I really, really, truly appreciate your contribution to our field in a big way. And like I said, I mean, it's guys like you that put out materials that in a consistent way that's contributed to all of our careers. And so I appreciate that. I can't, I took a great nugget away. I mean, I always say I'm a principle-based strength coach, not a philosophy-based. But you mentioned, principles are similar, but the adaptations are different. And, it was a statement you made that just clicked in my head. And so that's really, kind of gives me a unique perspective, a unique way to kind of build on something that's been in my program. So I've already gotten something out of this. I know everybody else will. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My privilege. One last thing, Ron. Avery said to me a couple of years ago, he said, Wayne, we're getting old enough. Who's going to carry on? Who's going to carry the ball when we leave? And Ron, I'll talk about this interview. I'll say we have nothing to worry about. You got it. Thank you so much and for all you do.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.